I guess we were like 5 minutes over on our salary board meeting. I apologize for that. This time, we're going to call the Warren County Election Board meeting to order. The first item of business would be the approval of the minutes from September 9th. If you had a chance to review them, do they meet with your approval?
They do, and I will make the motion to approve them.
I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded, discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next, there's no old business, new business, election printers and storage, and instructions and procedures. Lisa?
You're going to speak of the
Sorry.
printers and storage, right?
This was an issue that just been brought to my attention as far as looking at the equipment. I think it's Dell equipment, and I did some research on the Dell website, and I think I'm not familiar with the warehouse where it's stored, but maybe tell as far as what I know about the conditions of it. Comparing that to what's available, what the temperature gradients and ranges are allowable for the equipment. It seems that the warehouse does fall within the ranges that the warehouse allows. Nevertheless, I mean, there are more extremes in temperature in the warehouse than like just a temperature controlled environment. So submit to the board whether or not they want to look after this election for room temperature space for the equipment to stay in.
I think that's a great conversation to have after the election.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
perfect.
And right now, L&A has started downstairs, and granted, they're not very far on it, but I'm not hearing any problems with the printers yet, okay? Just, I know she's not very far, but, you know, she's got at least 1 or 2 precincts done, and she hasn't said anything about the printers not behaving themselves.
Okay, in terms of instructions and procedures, I requested some, I have not received them, so I don't believe there's anything to vote on today.
I gave Jeff a bunch of the instructions, and he was working on that with me.
Yep.
Okay, well, we don't have anything to vote on today. That said, this is the last meeting before the election, right?
Yep.
So we should probably look to set another one if we're going to approve those instructions before the election.
Right.
Well, I think that the issue is, when we were reviewing them, is that all the instructions are available to some degree in the handbook, and they just need to be reworked in order to be shared. So I don't know that we felt like there was anything that we were adding to the process that we would need to approve. Like we need to put them into a form that can be shared in a better way than what we have as far as like the work instructions, and there being a lot of stuff in it that maybe isn't necessary for some of the things that we want to do.
Lisa, is it fair to say that the instructions that you drafted with Jeff, just they synthesize the standard procedures they have in place?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's
So
just.
you're codifying what you're already doing.
Mhm.
Does that need to come to us for approval?
For official approval in some
In my opinion,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Then we probably need to have Jeff.
Well, I guess, so I guess the disagreement is that aside from state law, I don't know that there's anything, like, I don't know what we would approve that we haven't approved already.
But I think what was approved, there weren't instructions attached to them. I think that's what you're getting at, Ben?
Well, I mean,
You wanted the more definite instructions in.
Yeah, so there are gaps that I've noticed. Additionally, I think you want the rubber stamp of, even if it is just a rubber stamp of the election board to say, yes, these are our SOPs. Right now, things have been kind of cobbled together over the years. I shouldn't say cobbled, I mean, as needs arise,
Right,
you know, you've met them.
exactly.
But given the heightened scrutiny of this election, I think it would behoove us to more formalize things.
Maybe what we'll do is have a meeting between the three of us where Commissioner Kaplan can identify the gaps that he's referring to, so that we have an idea of exactly what he's looking for.
Yep.
I would actually rather have the solicitor deal with that.
Well, I understand, but I think that you're identifying, there's obviously specific things that you're interested in seeing.
I know, and I'm saying is that to identify a sunshine issue, the solicitor and I can work with Lisa on coming up with that rather than you and I thinking about it.
Well, I understand, but I don't think, I'm not looking at it as an opportunity to deliberate over anything. It's more of like to get an understanding of what exactly we're missing.
I recall an email from Commissioner Kaplan where he listed out the specific procedures that he was looking for. I mean, if I was to sit in on a meeting with that, I would use that as a guide. So,
I understand that, and I read that email.
Yeah.
Most of that stuff is in what's already available, and so that's why I'm saying, like, we should sit down and look at it, compare those two things, and then if there's areas that really don't have anything, then that's what we should address. Because right now, with the amount of time and the focus on getting the balance done and everything, you know, I have concerns about spending a huge amount of time handing something off and then it not being what's expected. So I don't know that it has to take a long time. I'm just, you know, is that okay? I mean,
Yes, we'll have a separate meeting.
yeah, I'd be happy to work with Lisa and both the commissioners and figure out what, you know, everyone's looking for on
Okay.
this. I think as a general rule, I would also state that as the original procedures that I set forth, there's a proviso that nothing that we're passing overrides the election code. These are basically, these are best practices.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Okay, very good. Anything more on this topic? If not, do you have any Trump lawsuit update?
I mean, the brief update is that the federal lawsuit was dismissed, and not aware that an appeal has been filed to the Third Circuit yet. We're awaiting a decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on some additional clarification of the election code.
Very good. Anything you wanted to add, Lisa? This time I'd ask if there's any public comment related to election. Mrs. Dunshee?
Thank you. First of all, thanks to everybody for your work, which is so time-consuming, and for providing additional help in Lisa's department for all that comes in now to give her a fighting chance of staying ahead of it all, and all of us with our questions. Susan Stout on behalf of the League of Women Voters. I'm a member, I don't speak for the board, but I'm a member of the League, and I happen to be present during this discussion. But she forwarded a letter from the League, the local league, requesting that the drop box location at our secure entry to the courthouse be reestablished for this election. Ideally, to have them out in the county and other locations, but recognizing time-wise that probably would be very difficult, if not impossible, to fulfill. So I encourage you to consider that. Is this the only point at which you could, would be today?
I think we may need to schedule another election meeting before the election. That said, we have previously talked about that. And I believe, if my memory serves, Commissioner Durbin and I were not in favor of that. But I can't recall the specifics. Did you have an
Yeah, I think the position of the board has been against drop boxes. For example, in the federal lawsuit that has just been dismissed, which may yet be appealed. I mean, it became a major source of inquiry by the Trump campaign in regard to, election, misconduct of people dropping off, more than just their ballot in a drop box. There was a local nearby county that actually, when complying with this discovery request, submitted video to the Trump campaign that included footage of someone dropping into like the courthouse door drop box more than one ballot. The Board of Elections was then subpoenaed to give a deposition. So in that case, Lisa's counterpart in that county had to give a deposition with about 100 lawyers or so present. It seems to me that, in my opinion, while it's not, it seems to be moving to where it's being permitted, but not required. And so my advice is, because I foresee continuing litigation over this election, even past the conduct of the election, my recommendation has been to not implement drop boxes if they're not necessary. I don't believe they are.
From my perspective, the difference between the back door and the elections office is not a significant enough difference to really matter. Additionally, the Postal Service obviously can take the ballot and you can check based on the code on the ballot, or excuse me, on the outer envelope, to use more accurate terms, whether or not it was received by the office. So I think we're covered on all bases from my perspective.
I would say for myself, and I think the league board would join me in saying that, as I've suggested before, whenever there's a fork in the road, and you can take the one that is more supportive of voters, we would ask that you all do that as a commission, and not take the line of least resistance. And this was, as Susan put in this, the two Supreme Courts have ruled at a certain level. Well, let me double check. State Supreme Court and a federal district court judge have ruled. And that seems to be leaving the door, it appears to be leaving the door open enough that many counties are implementing them. I can't think of a better place than where we have police right there keeping an eye on the boxes, especially for people that I believe have been allowed to come to that left-hand door as you're entering and put an envelope in the drop box where somebody is watching that transaction. Because somebody talked with me about the police saying someone couldn't bring in more than one and turn them away.
So the sheriff's deputies are not election personnel. I think that's the difficulty. Obviously, they're trustworthy. I mean, we trust them implicitly. We have them collect the election equipment and that sort of thing. But from a legal standpoint, if I could use that word, they're not election personnel. We're trained in that necessarily.
And I think what's also, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, the last thing I was going to say is, obviously, if we're in a fork in the road and it's easy, makes something easier for the voters versus harder, I would go that route, unless the other alternative is election security. Election security is probably more important to this board, in my opinion, given the first of all, kind of false dichotomy. It's not like it's something that's harder or less hard for the voters. The issue here is walking another additional, 300 feet or something through the building versus the potential of compromising the election system.
And the good news as well is, those people who have a difficult time can choose a mail-in ballot or an absentee ballot. And I think, Lisa, how many have you mailed out thus far?
Over almost 6,000.
6,000, which is way more than you ever have.
Last presidential I did 1,000.
1,000. So,
That
I
was
mean, I
what
think
was just
that's a
absentee.
plus as well for the voter, that they have that opportunity without restriction to not even need to show up at a polling place or a courthouse or even a mailbox.
Can I add something?
Sure.
All right, so as the people are bringing in their ballots to our office, they're asked two questions. Did your ballot in your secrecy envelope, and did you fill out your declaration? If it's put in the drop box and the declaration isn't completed, it will not be counted. I have not had anybody complain that they've had to walk to my office. I've had a few elderly people that could not physically walk to my office. Single Point calls me and I go down and get the ballot from them. I really think with, between the secrecy envelope having to be done and the declaration having to be done, anybody that bringing them in, we need to physically ask those questions and make sure this is complete for their ballots to be counted. That being said, the ones that are coming in through the mail that the declaration is not completed, I've typed up a letter and we're mailing them back to them to tell them to complete that and then resend it back to us. As far as the secrecy envelopes, we can't always tell, like when they come through the mail, whether there's a secrecy envelope or not. Some of this has to go back on the voter to follow the instructions that they're given. So I'm not in favor of a drop box. I guess that's my final thing. Because they're not only putting ballots in there, they're putting applications, they're putting voter registration stuff in there, and it's not up to the deputies to patrol that. And I don't have enough personnel. I mean, I do now because I have the extra help, but I don't have somebody that can just sit down there with a ballot box and say, you know, is it your ballot? And I've had people come in my office with 4 ballots. And it's like, I can only take yours. The rest either they have to bring them in themselves, or they have to put them in the mail. And we're just trying to be really proactive so that everybody's vote gets counted.
I appreciate that, Lisa.
Okay.
Then I'll reiterate the last paragraph, in which the league offers to work with the commissioners for future elections on broadening the outreach, possibly with satellite centers. And after last night's EMS session, which I was glad to attend, it causes me to think, is it possible that if additional equipment or things are needed to make satellite centers close to the election a possibility, could CARES Act funds help fund some of that? So as you deliberate on all of that, please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment regarding the election? Very good. Then I would ask for a motion to adjourn the election board meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 12:26. This time, I would like to turn our attention to the Commissioners' meeting. I would ask that everyone stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Immediately moment, after a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded, and anything said in the meeting will become part of public record. Since the last time the Board of Commissioners met, we have had several executive sessions. On the 28th of September, I think that's a minor error. So 9/28, there was an executive session regarding pending litigation. 9/29, there was an executive session regarding a personnel matter. On 10/5, there was an executive session with the solicitor regarding various legal issues, including pending litigation. There was an executive session on 10/13, and that was for legal advice regarding the elections, again with the solicitor. Correspondence received since the last meeting. Lori Bimber, the Register and Reporter, sent the Commissioners a letter worth reporting that preserves 1620 rights for the upcoming 2021 union negotiations. We received a letter from the League of Women Voters regarding the Dropbox request. We also received a letter from Spring Creek Township requesting assistance with their Cemetery Road Bridge, and I have subsequently met with them. They're asking for, essentially for a letter of support from the Commissioners to go after PennDOT Spike funds to rehabilitate the historic 1889 bridge, which I said we'd be happy to facilitate. And the sheriff sent us a letter indicating that he will have 2 additional staff on for the election day as kind of a roving patrol, so to speak. At this time, I'd ask if there's any public comment. Very good. On the agenda today, we have an agreement with Lakeshore, a pilot agreement with Lakeshore Community Services, several resolutions regarding CDBG, as well as a notice to award for Bear Lake through CDBG, repository bids and tax claim fees, as well as approval of the VigilNet agreement, the Homeland Security grant agreement, disposal of items at the warehouse, agreement with Perillo, an agreement for, an Act 13 grant application, approval of an agreement with Maximus, and then finally the Small Business Grant Program Round 2 allocation, which I assume is why most people are here. Is there anything missing from the agenda that we had previously said we would talk about today? Hearing none, have you had a chance to review the minutes from September 23rd?
I have.
Hearing no amendments, I would turn to Eric for the finance report and HR report.
You have the finance report in front of you. For today, the general fund has about $4.8 million in it, and the savings account at your bank has $650. We transferred, well, I should say the transfer office is in process of transferring the $500,000 back into that savings account that we previously borrowed last month. We did get some additional tax receipts yesterday and today, subsequent to me putting this together. And we're trying to get the TAN paid off effective date tomorrow. So that's at 2.5. On the human resources report, in September, Don Valerius started effective 9/20 at the jail as a cook, one at the rate of $13.98. Giving Coons on the 9/28 in the pathoneterary's office as the clerk of the courts coordinator at the rate of $12.92. We had a few changes. We had Melissa Baxter effective 9/9, going from caseworker to caseworker supervisor at the rate of $21.91. Brian Zabel also started as a part-time sheriff's deputy, besides being at the DA's office, effective 9/18 at the rate of $16.98. And Chris Rich at 9/28 went from a full-time corrections officer to a full-time sheriff's deputy, at also the rate of $16.98. We have one separation effective 9/7, that was Tyler Wagner from the sheriff's office. That's the end of my report.
Good, thank you. Any questions? You'll also find that there are several departmental reports, but as we're crunched on time, we'll skip those. There's no proclamations on the agenda for today. In terms of CARES Act requests that we've received since the last meeting, Glade Volunteer Fire Department has requested the maximum $5,000.
Consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes, the finance report, the HR report, the monthly departmental reports?
I'll make that motion.
One second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Apologize for that. Okay, Glade Fire Department requested the full 5,000. Garland Volunteer Fire Department, they had originally approved through the SPG, applied through the SPG program, but when they found out about the separate municipal pot, requested the full 5,000. Clarendon Fire Department, same thing. The Corey Columbus Fire Department also requested $5,000 for PPE, Tyvek, eye protection, etc. They're, again, the primary coverage agency for Columbus Fire Department. And Youngsville Borough was able to demonstrate, let's see the total here, it was almost $10,000 in expenses, but I don't see the letter itself. Well, I guess I would ask to approve up to $10,000 in reimbursable expenses for CARES Act eligible funds. Grand Valley Fire Department also applied for $5,000, and we're actually able to demonstrate $13,000 in losses just from skipping one event. I believe that is it. Okay, so that ended up being requests for $5,000 from Garland, Glade, Grand Valley, Columbus, Clarendon, and then Youngsville Borough. The last thing I wanted to discuss, up to $10,000 for Youngsville Borough. And they could obviously still apply for more. There's no cap on municipalities, but that was what they had been able to demonstrate thus far. So could I have a motion to approve out of CARES Act funds the $5,000 for Garland, Glade, Grand Valley, Columbus, Clarendon, and then the up to $10,000 in expenses for Youngsville Borough?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
The discussion? All those in favor?
Well, I just say that obviously we're hugely supportive of the fire departments and other organizations, and many of them have had challenges with receiving CARES Act under other, situations. So, I'm very glad that we're able to provide them with this additional funding. It's useful.
Yep, and this is again out of the pot that we previously allocated towards these purposes. We just have, these are the first requests, right, that actually got processed. Okay, and then, all those in favor of the motion to approve the allocations as listed, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. carries. The final one for CARES Act is a broadband deployment, which I don't believe is in your packet. The idea is to expand broadband coverage in the outer Youngsville area. The cost would be $110,000. What I'm bringing before you today is not necessarily a vote to approve it, but simply to see if you're willing to entertain that. So I think they could probably get the wheels moving on that. So the only question I think really for me is solicitor, since they are the only game in town, so to speak, I would assume it'd be acceptable to bid with them. We did accept their bid. We have talked to Zelikowski and Axelrod, and they said, yes, that should work, but you should always check with your solicitor. So
Yeah,
if you need more information or something, let us know.
okay, so since you're just entertaining, I can confirm by the time that you're ready to take a vote.
Okay. So it'll have to be in 2 weeks, I guess.
Okay.
All right. The new business then, Lakeshore Community Services. This is a pilot program. Actually, were you involved at all in negotiations for them?
I was not, but I have reviewed the agreement and I approved it.
Okay. So this was put forth before by the assessment department on behalf of the Lakeshore conglomerates. This would be for several properties that they contest could have been tax-free and have offered in terms of negotiation a partial payment. Any questions? Would, by the way, have to also be approved by the Board of Supervisors of Pittsfield Township, the City of Warren, the School District, and Conowongo Township, as they have properties in all of those municipalities. Hearing no questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agreement before us.
I'll make the motion to approve the agreement.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion- All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, CDBG commitment to mandated federal regulations. For that, I will turn to Lori Dunlap.
I'm the grants administrator for the CDBG program for the county. As recipients of federal funds every year, we're asked to recommit mandated federal regulations. Not necessarily in the order, I'm going to discuss them, but we have to recommit through A, discussing them today publicly, and B, through some resolutions. The county has to recommit to the policy of non-discrimination on the basis of disability status, basically, and designated me as the Section 504 coordinator, which means that I'm to ensure that all county services are available to people regardless of any disabilities that they may have. I have done a very intensive study of all the facilities and made recommendations, and we've made some improvements. There's some that could be made as funds are available. We have a grievance procedure, we have a form, if anyone feels that they have been discriminated against for county services because of a disability, that they can submit a grievance to that. County also has to submit to a minority and women-owned business enterprise plan. The county is encouraged to solicit bids for any CDBG-funded contracts from minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. Basically, we do this whenever I advertise a project. I go through a listing through general services and find agencies to send a request to. We have a goal of 5% of our CDBG grants contracts going to minority-owned businesses and 3% to women-owned businesses. These percentages are what's suggested by the feds. Similar to that, the county also has to commit to encouraging the hiring of Section 3 persons when a CDBG contract is in place. That is someone who lives locally and who falls under HUD low-income guidelines. We do that by encouraging the contractors that we hire. They have to fill out forms saying that if they need any extra help for their project, that they will try to hire someone locally who is low income. we have to set a goal of 30% of all CDBG contracts to go towards that. That's a hard one, because there's no firm listing of these people. The final one is County Residential Anti-Displacement and Relocation Assistance Plan. Basically, the CDBG project is planned where a low-income person will be displaced from their home, that the county will use CDBG funds to rehouse them for a certain amount of time. This could be if we were going to do a large development and some low-income, housing for low-income people were to be demolished and we were going to rebuild more housing and development, that they would be assisted. So the county does demolition of blighted properties. We never do anything that is inhabited. So that rarely comes up. But if we did, we would assist them with CDBG dollars and relocate. Any questions?
Very good, then I would ask for a motion to approve the grievance procedure, resolution 3169, adopting minority and women's business plan, resolution 3170, the non-discrimination policy, resolution 3171, section 3 plan, and residential anti-displacement plan.
I'll make a motion to adopt all of those.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, comments? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next, notice to award Bear Lake Stormwater. Also Lori Dunlap.
Thank you. The commissioners have awarded or allotted funds to Bear Lake Borough to hire an engineering firm to design the reconstruction of Center Street. Last year, we replaced their stormwater system. Now we need to replace the roadway. I met with their borough council. We received 6 proposals ranging from $9,200 to $67,700. We picked one in the middle. They based it on the firm's experience with street reconstruction and CDBG experience. And they came up with Stifler McGraw and awarding them a contract for $32,000 total, which was in the middle with most of them. So I ask you that you would award them that contract.
Any questions for the presenter? And I would ask for a motion to accept the bid from Stifler McGraw, the Center Street Stormwater Drainage Project in Bear Lake for $32,000.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next, repository bids. We have 3 repository bids before us today. First is YB 81436 in Pittsfield Township. That's at on Route 27, currently owned by Frank Adams. Bid on by Sherry Ringer for $250. Next is WN 8226377 in the city of Warren at 23 Locust Street, currently owned by Rick and Terry McCurdy. Bid on by Amy Kellogg for $1,601. Next is TD 2655999 in limestone, unknown description, and it's currently owned by Gap Real Estate Acquisition. Bid on by Zachary Shade for $260. Any questions for the Tax Claim Bureau? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve the 3 bids before us.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next, resolution 3168, the tax claim schedule of fees. The Tax Claim Bureau has brought this before us. I believe it's been several years since the fees have been updated. And you'll find the schedule for you in this resolution. Any questions for the Tax Claim Bureau? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 3168.
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 3168.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next is an agreement with VigilNet. This would be specifically for the Adult Probation Office. and it pertains to the scram monitors that are used on people on probation. It is the equipment that we use to continuously monitor alcohol in the blood. It's an annual agreement that we pass every year. Any questions? Could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the Vigilant agreement.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, approval of Homeland Security Federal Year 2020 Grant Program Agreement. We get this every year, it's very standard. Questions? So this, by the way, is the program that pays the Emergency Management Agency, reimburses our costs for that department. Looks like the award amount this year is $358,288. There's no questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve the grant agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Next is approval of disposal of items at the warehouse. The chief clerk and maintenance department have a section of the warehouse that has a bunch of old file cabinets, tables, chairs, etc. that are taking up space at the warehouse that we'd like to get rid of. Essentially, the commissioners need to officially dispose of such assets, although I'm not sure I would call them assets at this point. So this is, I don't think we even need a motion. I would just empower the chief clerk to determine what is worth giving away to nonprofits or municipal governments, and the rest of the stuff out there, the chief clerk should just feel empowered to dispose of as scrap. Congratulations.
Very empowering.
Any objections?
I'll speak for Pam, she's very thrilled with the empowerment.
It's the cleansing
Just can't wait to
process.
get the garbage for a game. Did I say garbage?
Next is an annual agreement we have with Perillo, and that's for document destruction shredding. If there are any questions, please direct them to the chief clerk. If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve the agreement.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Eggleston to explain an Act 13 request.
So we became aware that DCNR has a program that is going to is potentially going to go away very soon, which is an early planning grant program. Essentially, what I'm asking for is roughly $10,000 out of the Act 13 fund to be used as a match for a grant from DCNR to create a plan, a conceptual plan for the Grunderville Landfill and the Girl Scout camp at Birdsall Eddy. The idea being that the plan will be created as a part of a recreation plan, so this would be an amendment to the previous program that we're already engaged in, so that they could come up with various opportunities for recreation in that region, with the understanding that the property, at least the landfill, is going to be transferred to the redevelopment authority. We also think that by creating this plan, it's our best chance to try to entice the federal government to turn over the Girl Scout camp, which we feel has it has a deal of value due to its historical significance and also its vicinity to the river and access to the river. So if you go through the proposal, you'll see there's a variety of things that are discussed. All of these would be reviewed by a landscape architect and engineer that's associated with the organization. Things discussed are river access, like some type of boat launch river access near the camp, the concept of an amphitheater or some kind of space for an exterior meeting place or event. Frisbee golf course, redevelopment of the Girl Scout camp to be used as indoor cabins or having senior programs, walking routes around the site. The total size of the site is almost 400 acres. The site around the landfill is about 126, 150, depending on what map you look at. But it's a substantial area, and we want to see it utilized. So this would not affect the budget. We've allocated money from Act 13 for these types of projects. And then again, we would be drawing down matching funds from DCNR if approved. So what I'm asking for is just the option to use $10,000 of the Act 13 funds as a match for a potential grant. We would have to be awarded the grant before we could utilize the funds. And again, to come up with a plan to redevelop that area of the county.
Do we hear a motion?
I would make the motion to approve $10,000 to be utilized for a grant application for a redevelopment project on the Brennville landfill.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Okay, thanks for grabbing that, Frank. There's no other discussion, and all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Maximus agreements on the agenda, but I don't believe we have the.
We didn't get it, so I'm gonna post table that.
Okay, motion to table Maximus agreement. Please make.
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Table to the next meeting. And last but not least, the Small Business Grant Program, Round 2. The pot of money that the commissioners allocated out of the initial round of CARES Act money was $2 million, initially a $1 million tranche, and then two $500,000. Since then, we've found, I guess we could say, more money within that CARES Act money to sort of allocate, but that'll end up being around $3 million, I assume, at this point. But this round was still slated to be $500,000. They did take some leftover from round 1 for a grand total of recommendations totaling $539,351. Mr. Decker is here from the WCCBI. Would you have anything to present related to this allocation?
Yeah, I'll just add some statistics from round 2 in terms of what we looked at. We had 39 applications received for consideration in round 2, totaling a roughly $1.475 million in requests. As Commissioner Kaplan mentioned, we had a budget of $539,000. When we've gone through our evaluation, we were paring that request down to eligibility number of just over $900,000 in eligible funding, and again with a $539,000 budget. We recommended 27 awards, averaging just shy of $20,000 apiece. Comparing that to round 1, we had 39 awards at an average award price of $24,000. So we're being very consistent round 1 to round 2. There were really 3 reasons to answer the question of why someone wasn't awarded or recommended for award in the round 2. There were 3 reasons that we came across or came up against. One was that it was strictly just additional information was required from the applicant that put us beyond the timeline, and those requests have been made of the applicants, and we're getting that information. Those entities will be considered in round 3. The second reason for non-award would be that the losses presented were covered by other assistance programs that had been received by the entity, particularly Paycheck Protection Plan funding. And then the last reason was we did recommend and withhold additional awards to those entities that were awarded funds in round 1. Just based on that lack of available funding, we wanted to make sure we were able to help as many businesses to the greatest extent possible here in round 2. Those entities that were pulled out of round 2 that had received round 1 funds are going to be kept on a list. And as we get through round 3, if there are available funds outstanding after round 3, or if additional funding comes through from the Commonwealth or from the federal government. We'll have a list of those businesses that are eligible for additional awards, and we can manage those requests at the end of the whole program as we enter the end of the year. So that's how we see round 2, and kudos to the commissioners for creating a system that I think is put us in a position to be very equitable across the board and do a lot of good things for a lot of businesses across Warren County. Thank you.
Jim, I just want to thank you and your team at WCCBI, as well as, you know, the 2 CPA firms that you worked with. I know these are very difficult situations, and that you really care about the businesses and make sure that you are able to spread these funds as best possible. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I just had, I'd echo what Commissioner Durbin said, and just say that the feedback that I've gotten generally has been overwhelmingly positive, just from the people that have interacted with your organization, and, you know, and then just talking about the program. There were so many businesses that were just really negatively affected by this year and everything that's gone on, and to know that through this program we've been able to help some stay afloat and maybe make it through the storm, weather the storm a little bit, has been very gratifying. So thank you for all your work and that you're doing, and everybody that's been involved. I think it's going to be a very good success story, as much as you can have in 2020, you know, and trying to help people.
Very good. I will.
This morning's email,
What's that?
this morning's email, that was a good thing that we got a nod from the state audit department that our fiscal status report to date has been shown that our projects have been approved, our expenditures to date have been approved.
That is great news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Very good. I will have to put that on the next meeting's correspondence. I don't think I saw that yet. It's great.
You mean you don't have my emails on a special place?
I didn't see your email today, no. All right. By my reading of the conflict of interest policy, I don't have a literal conflict of interest in voting for this. Nevertheless, I will be abstaining from the vote because my association with Low Bank, namely that my wife is the executive director of it, and it was recommended. So I will continue, though, since it's not a literal conflict of interest, to run the meeting. So this time I'd ask for a motion to approve or disapprove of the schedule put before us.
I'll make the motion to approve $539,351 of CARES Act money for round 2.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Do a roll call votes. Commissioner Durbin, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Eggleston, aye or nay?
Aye.
And I abstain, so motion carries. I believe that's it on the agenda. This time I'd ask if there's any commissioner comments. Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll also make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Look at that, Pam.
Thanks,
Out by
everybody.
one.